Luke chapter 23. Virtually the entire assembly got up and took him to Pilate. They began accusing him by saying, "We found this man misleading our people and forbidding them to pay tribute money to Caesar, and claiming that he is the Messiah, the King." When Pilate was interrogating him, he asked, "Are you the King of the Jews?" And he replied, "It is as you say." Pilate told the high priests and the crowd, "I find no criminality in this man." They were enraged and said, "He is stirring up our people by teaching throughout Judea, from Galilee, and now here." On hearing the name Galilee, Pilate asked if the man was a Galilean. Upon learning that he came from Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him over to Herod, who was in Jerusalem at the time. Herod was greatly pleased to see Yeshua, because he had been wanting to see him for a long time. He had heard many things about him, and he hoped to see him perform some miracle. He asked him many questions, but Yeshua wouldn't answer. Meanwhile, the high priests and Torah teachers were standing there vehemently accusing him. Then Herod and his soldiers treated him like a fool and mocked him. They clothed him in a purple robe and sent him to Pilate. On that very day, Pilate and Herod became friends with each other, though previously there had been hostility between them. Pilate called together the high priests and the leaders of the people and told them, "You brought this man to me, claiming he is misleading your people, but I have examined him in your presence, and I didn't find this man guilty of anything that you accuse him of, nor did Herod, because I sent him to him, and he has done nothing to deserve death. So I will chastise him and let him go." It was customary for him to release someone to them at the feast. The entire crowd began hatefully yelling out, "Take him away and release Barabbas to us!" Barabbas was one who had been thrown into prison in connection with an insurrection in the city and for murder. Pilate, wanting to release Yeshua, addressed them again, but they yelled out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" He appealed to them a third time. "Why? What crime has he committed? I find no reason for putting him to death. So I'll chastise him and release him." But they were insistent, and with loud outcries demanded that he be crucified. And the demands of the people and the high priests prevailed. Pilate decided to give in to their demands. He released to them the man who had been thrown in prison for insurrection and murder, who they clamored for, and he let them have their way with Yeshua. As they led him away, they grabbed Simon the Cyrenian, coming in from the fields, and forced him to carry the cross behind Yeshua. A large crowd of people followed him, including women who were mourning and lamenting him. Yeshua turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, don't cry for me, but cry for yourselves and for your children, because the time is coming when they'll say, 'Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they'll begin to say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' If they do these things to a green tree, what will they do to a dry one?" Two criminals were being led away to be executed with him. When they came to the place called the Skull, they crucified him there with the two criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Yeshua said, "Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they are doing." Then they divided his garments, casting lots for them. The people stood by watching, and even their leaders were sneering at him by saying, "He rescued others. He should rescue himself if he is the Messiah, the one chosen by Jehovah." The soldiers also mocked him by coming to him and offering him vinegar and saying to him, "If you are the king of the Jews, then rescue yourself." There was also an inscription over him, written in Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals being crucified with him blasphemed him and said, "If you are the Messiah, rescue yourself and rescue us." But his fellow criminal scolded him and asked him, "Aren't you even afraid of Jehovah, since you are under the same penalty? We're being treated fairly because we're getting what we deserve for what we've done, but he hasn't done anything wrong." He told Yeshua, "Master, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Yeshua told him, "Most certainly, I tell you today, you will be with me in paradise." It was about the 6th hour, (noon), and darkness covered the whole land. Until the 9th hour, (3 o'clock). The sun was darkened, and the curtain of the temple was ripped down the middle. Yeshua cried in a loud voice, "Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands." Once he said that, he died. When the centurion saw what happened, he praised Jehovah and said, "Certainly, this was a righteous man." The entire crowd that had gathered to see this beat their chests and left. All of Yeshua's acquaintances were standing at a distance, including the women who had accompanied him from Galilee, and they witnessed these things. There was a man named Joseph, a member of the Sanhedrin, from Ramoth, Arimathea, a city in Judah, who was a good and righteous man, who had not voted for their plan of action and was awaiting the kingdom of Jehovah. This man went to Pilate and asked for Yeshua's body. He took it down and wrapped it in a winding sheet of linen and laid it in a hewn tomb where no one had ever been laid. It was preparation day, Wednesday, and the twilight of the Sabbath. The women who came with him from Galilee approached and saw the tomb where the body was placed. They returned and prepared perfume and aromatics, and they rested on the Sabbath in obedience to the commandment.